My name is Ron Carver. I'm the curator of this exhibit, Waging Peace in Vietnam, U.S. Soldiers and Veterans Who Opposed the War. It starts here with this photograph of David Courtwright, who is the co-editor with me of the companion book. It's a photograph that was taken by the famous fashion photographer Richard Avedon. And this is actually David Courtwright in his uniform, and on his hand is a real live peace dove. And the Student Mobilization Committee wanted this poster to show the tie-in between the GI movement within the military and the civilian peace movement. There were close to 300 individual GI newspapers written by GIs for GIs. Soldiers were being court-martialed for handing out these underground papers, so they did it at great risk. They exchanged these from one base to another. They were able to actually build the GI movement for peace. The other key enabling aspect of the GI movement were the coffee houses that we set up. There were 32 GI coffee houses outside of military installations all over the country. They were places where GIs could get together after work or in the weekend, listen to rock and roll, drink coffee, talk to each other, but they also used these coffee houses to plan protests. The number of folks going AWOL had quadrupled. Over 1 million days of military service were lost to the Army as people were going AWOL and deserting. This is a powerful, robust movement. By 1971, the GI movement was so robust that the Pentagon felt they had to begin withdrawing troops. At that point, they began to rely more on the Navy and the Air Force for bombing missions, the Navy for fighter jets, the Air Force for B-52s. And as that began to happen, the anti-war movement began to grow more robust within the Navy and the Air Force. The other thing that the veterans did when they came back is they blew the whistle on war crimes. And without them, America would never know the true horrors of this war. By this period of time, the late 60s, we're past the period of simply individual moral acts of dissent into building resistance, into actually building a GI movement. You can't discount the role of the GI movement that made the continued prosecution of the war, both the ground war and the air war, untenable for the Pentagon.
Coming to this exhibition opens your eyes and tells you how much work came into letting the people know what was going on in Vietnam.
That they forgot what they were trying to accomplish and they just wanted to win at all costs.
The anti-war movement in the United States was strong, but going to this exhibit is an eye-opening experience for me.
So I was quite aware that there was quite a lot of resistance within the military at the time. What surprised me about this exhibition was the extent of it into different bases around the United States, as well as that different units within the military actually were publishing underground papers and pamphlets that were distributed among the troops.
We did not know that there were so many American soldiers against the war, both in the battlefield here in Vietnam, but also back in America.
I learned that the mass amount of GIs that were protesting the war. I knew that the civilians were, but I didn't know as much about the people actually in the military. America really was the antagonist. At school, they teach you the American side of the war. This is definitely going to be one thing that I'm taking back to America after I leave Vietnam.
About 17% of the army deserted from the army and they took refuge in Canada and places like Germany and Sweden.
I'm not surprised that so many soldiers were against the war, because we're all human.
People were protest and how effective that can be and how people will do it if they don't believe in what's happening. It's just an amazing story.
moving forward and learn about the past so that we don't repeat the same mistake.
I love this museum, especially this room about the American soldiers.
The images that I saw as I was walking through this exhibit, they're just horrifying and also just sad and inspiring. And I'll be making sure that they know that the U.S. did do terrible things in the war.
I'm very touched by this entire exhibit.
This exhibit is pretty spectacular. Really enjoyed it.
It's pretty impressive, emotional, hopeful, and scary to look at. Goosebumps.